So how's it, guys? Welcome back to the channel. And you're probably wondering why I'm not even in the image, but I am over here. I am definitely here. So what's going on? Why is there a carry pop open on the table with lots of bunch of things lying around? Very simple. I was chatting with a Funko contact of mine in the US who messaged me a few weeks back asking me who do I pay to take my photographs. And simply put, nobody. I do it all myself. So I'm a one-man band as far as the whole channel goes and all those goodies. But most of you are not aware, but I am in fact a photographer by trade. So that's what I actually do for a living. So that's how I make an income. And yeah, so Funko Pops was my sort of a scapegoat. Funko was sort of my hobby side of things. You know, keep my mind off work, and it was a lacquer avenue for me to sort of start experimenting with other things and another way to start collecting stuff. So the nice thing is the fact that I know how to take photographs. It helps in showing what pops could look like and, you know, putting them in a set scene and things like that. So what I'm going to do today is I'm actually going to give you a very simple tutorial on how to take your own photos of your own Funko Pops and use them for your own collection, and just another way of cataloging the things that you've collected. Now, I'm going to shoot it with an iPhone. I am a Sony Alpha A7 user. I use pretty much all the Sony glass. I have a hell of an investment in the gear, but not everybody does. So I'm not going to take these photographs with a proper setup. I'm actually going to use my Sony to record this whole thing, and I'm going to shoot it with my cell phone. Once I've taken the photograph and shown you a very basic setup, I'm then going to take you into a Photoshop environment and show you how to really make your own images pop. And I'm going to tell it to you this way. You will have had to have zero Photoshop experience. I'm going to make it that simple. In fact, even if you get the photograph great straight out the bat, you wouldn't even have to worry about Photoshopping it anyway. But I'm just going to show you the nips and tips and tricks on how you can really make a Funko pop. Mind the pun. So I've chosen carry as my subject matter. So what you're going to really need is obviously the Funko Pop that you want to take a photograph. You can use natural backgrounds if you like. I mean, for example, you can see my background. I can use the Funko displays. The only problem with that, though, is lighting it is an absolute nightmare, because every single piece of, you know, window would have to be positioned at a very specific angle, so not as to show any reflection. So you'll often see in my videos, sometimes you don't see much reflection, but that's because my Funko Pop display has to be adjusted at different angles to obviously compensate for the light coming in. But for the photographic side, I'm going to show you a very simple and easy trick. So I'm going to walk across camera here, and I'm just going to quickly show you a very simple and basic system that I like to use. Go mad. I mean, do anything, do it your way, do it how you want to do it. But this is just a simple setup to show you a quick and simple way to set up your Funkos to take photographs. And I'm sure most of the stuff you'll have in your own household that you can utilize for the shoot. First and foremost, you'll need a phone or a decent camera. Lighting is always very important. You could use LED panels, you could use natural lighting, whatever you like. For this scenario, I'm actually going to leave the LED panel running for the video aspect and just show you a quick simple setup. Now, fortunately, my missus is very much into her sewing and things, so we've always got lots of lacquer materials lying around. So I'm going to use this as my base material. This is an anti-slip mat. So this is the type of thing that you'd find in like decor places and stuff, car places. This is the typical sort of matting you would use in your boot of the car or your trunk if you're from America. And yeah, so I've chosen this as my sort of base. Now, what I wanted to use for my background is I don't want to get too technical in changing all my stuff here. I've just got a simple piece of masonite board, which I've sprayed random silver spray on. And in fact, it comes off on everything I touch. But I'm going to use this as my main backboard just to stop any reflection from the background. I'm just resting it on a toolbox if you really want to know what's going on back here. And that's essentially my main setup. I just want to put my laptop here as well. I'm going to use the laptop to hold it in place, like so. All right. Within a matter of seconds, you'll see that I now have a decent display where I have got a backing and I've got my foreground. You could shoot with an infinity curve, which is essentially just a sheet of material that you could sort of taper in like a half pipe. You could go that route. I like to keep it interesting with decent backgrounds and so on. My favorite choice right now, my go-to, is this is a rotating mirror system that I use to display Funko Pops. Just clean it with normal window lean. And the reason I like this is because it kind of gives a two-dimension to your image. So you're just going to place that down there, place your Funko Pop on top, and there you've basically set up with your traditional lighting. Now what you'll notice is the LED light that I'm using isn't really diffused properly for photographic use. In fact, not even for video. Just going to shift it across here quick. I just want to try and get an even sort of light on my pop. Because remember, anything that's not on the actual Funko, so as far as backgrounds, you can always manipulate later. It's reflecting off the mirror. So if I draw this back a bit, I might have a nice and natural sort of backlighting. All right, so that you can manipulate and change as you need to. I'm just going to adjust the camera here so you can get a better understanding of what it might look like in the real world. Essentially, if I was going to use this camera to shoot it, I'd go nice and tight crop and shoot it. But I'm just going to zoom out a bit so you guys get an idea of the actual setup itself. So what have we got? We've got a Funko Pop with a mirror system and a backlight. I am a huge fanatic of symmetry. So I'm just going to get her to sit sort of quite flush in the middle there. This is not something that will be easily Photoshopped later. That's basically your standard setup. I do like to play around with a little bit of different lighting here and there. So what you'll see is I've got a little torch over here. So a nice tactical torch. And then if any of you guys are sushi lovers, you'll normally get your soy sauce in a container with a lid like this. Now, because I'm not using any pro stuff, I'm not going to use professional gels or anything like that. Basic home setup. If you actually shine the light through there, you see what I can do? I can manipulate my lighting and my backgrounds quite simply. So normally I'd actually just stick this on with a bit of sellotape, but for the purposes of the demonstration, I'll just hold it in place. Now, key to photos and things like this, you don't initially want to change the color of your Funko Pop, unless you're going for the deep red sort of effect. I'm actually going to come from behind and do a backlight red. So I'm going to probably hold my light here when I actually take the photograph. And the reason I want to do that is I want to initially expose nicely for the Funko Pop, but have a nice sort of red background, give it that horror effect. And then if any of you folks are smokers or vapors, you could actually go one step further and get yourself a vape machine and use this to give yourself a bit more of a dramatic effect. So I like to go that route because it does give the Funko Pop a bit more of a cool look, so to speak. Essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cell phone, and what I'll do is I'm going to set up my cell phone on self timer, and I'm going to try and time it correct, where I do that scenario in the back, and then by the time I time it with my camera, hopefully it takes the snapshot. All right, let's get the cell phone. Okay, now this is going to be a little tricky for me to demonstrate because now I'm using my tripod for the video. I won't be able to put my phone on the tripod, but in this way I'll be able to try and handhold it myself. Let's open up the phone, let's open up camera, and you're just going to set your camera to its best possible quality setting. I don't care if you have a Samsung or an iPhone or a BlackBerry, your lighting is the most important aspect. I'm just going to set my camera sort of probably there. So as you can see in the image, I'm going to probably try and expose, I could probably go for the double effect. Probably quite cool, but we're playing around with different scenarios. Now remember, I'm going to be doing some Photoshop manipulation. So if I go with this effect, now you'll notice as a photographer, when you start looking at things around and how much post-processing you're going to need, you'll see that I've got all these Funko Pops in the background as in my display, which is not really something you want to go with. Would probably end up with a scenario like this, where I'd like to sort of mirror the backing. In fact, I'm going to change it to a bit wider, if it allows me. Okay, so it's probably not going to allow me too much background, but that I can easily edit out later. And maybe that even comes up with a cool effect. All right, so for the purposes of this, I just want to raise up this background. So let me find something I can put it on. A box. Yeah, that's much better. So this way I don't have too much of the Funko Pops in the background off the reflection. And that's essentially a very simple and quick background. You could manipulate it any way you want. You can chop and change things as you like. Now you'll notice I'm using a single LED. That's giving me a backlight over here. So giving me hard shadows. For the purposes of this, I'll even show you in Photoshop how to rectify that. I'm not going to go and change lighting just for this scenario. We're trying to do it as cheap and easy as we can. All right, so simply that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have that effect there, and I'm going to actually lock in a slightly darker exposure. And the reason why is simply that if you underexpose an image, you can always fix it with ease in Photoshop later. If you don't, it's going to be a nightmare down the line if you're overexposing. So when you underexpose an image, you've got more room to play. And if you overexpose, then that's a bit of an issue. You don't have much room to play after the fact. I think for the purposes of this, we can actually leave that background in. I'm going to try and find a way to do this all 1, 2, 3. We'll set our phone up to a 10-second self timer. That gives me time to line up, and we don't want flash. And we're good to go. We've got our LED light set up here, and then cool, let's give this a whack. Okay, so I'm going to hit the self timer now. Okay, did we get it? We did, but it's not fantastic. Okay, we're going to do it again. Yeah, this is very difficult to do without having things on clamps and so on. Trying to do it yourself is not fun. Okay, so I'm going to use a little jar here just to help me compose. It's a nightmare having to try and do this all with one hand. Alright, so let's just for argument's sake say that's the sort of composure that I'm looking for, composition-wise. Okay, so that's a little underexposed. I want to lock in. No, let's focus there. Okay, so I want to lock my exposure because then I can then adjust later. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that scenario. Remember, don't worry about the stuff at the bottom. We're going to cut that all out later. Let's give it another whack. 10-second self timer. Alright, so I'm quite happy with that. That's got quite a bit of smoke in the background. I'm going to do another one where I'm just going to bring it back a bit more. Try and get everything in the shot. Because remember, we can always crop in later. So don't worry about too much around the backgrounds and things. We can fix that down the line. Alright, let's give it another go. Alright, let's see how that one's come out. Yeah, that's not too shabby. I don't like this shadowed area here, so we'll do another one. Okay, so I'm just going to give it another shot. This one should be quite a cool exposure. All right, lekker. I'm quite happy with that one. And now we'll take this image into Photoshop and show you how to do it from there. Cool, so that's video 1 done, and click on the next video so I can show you guys how to edit that photo in Photoshop. And again, like I said, you will need 0 experience. Click it. See you now. Cheerio.